We'll be finishing it, inshallah.
يوم لا يغني مولى عن مولى. We did that. إلا من رحم الله.
No. تفضل.
إنه هو العزيز الرحيم. Did we do that? إلا من رحم الله. Remember? Let's start with that.
Okay.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إلا من رحم الله إنه هو العزيز الرحيم. إن شجرة الزقوم طعام الأثيم كالمهل يغلي في البطون كغل الحميم خذوه فاعتلوه إلى سواء الجحيم ثم صبوا فوق رأسه من عذاب الحميم ذق إنك أنت العزيز الرحيم عزيز الكريم. إن هذا ما كنتم به تمترون. إن المتقين في مقام أمين في جنات وعيون يلبسون من سندس واستبرق متقابلين كذلك وزوجناهم بحور عين يدعون فيها بكل فاكهة آمنين لا يذوقون فيها الموت إلا الموتة الأولى ووقاهم عذاب الجحيم.
جزاك الله خير.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Accept such as receive Allah's mercy, for He is exalted in might, most merciful. Verily, the tree of Zaqqum will be the food of the sinful, like molten brass. It will boil in their inside, like the boiling of scalding water. A voice will cry, "Seize you him and drag him into the midst of the blasting fire. Then pour over his head the penalty of boiling water. Taste you this, truly was thou mighty, full of honor. Truly this is what you used to doubt. As to the righteous, they will be in a position of security among gardens and springs, dressed in fine silk, and in a rich brocade they will face each other. Moreover, we shall join them in companions with beautiful, big and lustrous eyes. There can they call for every kind of fruit in peace and in security, and nor will they there taste death except the first death, and he will perceive them from we will preserve them from the penalty of the blazing fire.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد. We're still in the surah, or the theme of the surah is between the dynamic between those who are disbelievers and those who are believers, and how those who disbelieved, they argued about issues that they have no information about. information about death, about the hereafter, about the soul, what happened to it, about resurrection. These are issues that mankind do not have any information about except the information that they are told about from the one who has that knowledge, from a source that is authentic. But mankind themselves, they do not have a data about what is a soul, what happened after death, and if there is resurrection or not. There is no information that they can actually, or evidence that they can collect and reach a conclusion. So they need to verify the source. And the source they had was Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And they had the Quran, in which there is no doubt, and challenge them to get anything like it or any surah like it. If you cannot and you will not, then be aware of hellfire. Now, at the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, here in this ayat, talks about the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the exception, those who are righteous, the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will reach them. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reach them. And He is Al-Aziz Al-Rahim. Okay? There are, Al-Aziz comes with other attributes. Here the attribute that comes with it is Al-Aziz Al-Rahim. And once you think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Al-Aziz and then Al-Rahim, you live a better life on this earth. Just when you think of that. And when you think of those two attributes, and you know that, and you know that you are living within these two attributes alone, okay? It is a life that becomes a comfortable life, a life of safety of the heart and the mind. Remember Al-Aziz. Al-Aziz is the one that has certain qualities. Okay, in anything that is Aziz has certain qualities. And Aziz in Arabic means, you can say dear. From one of the meaning of it is dear. And also in Urdu as well. Aziz meaning dear. And why would anything becomes dear to you and close to you? Because you need. Because it is something that you absolutely need, but also if something that you need but it is available all the time, then it does not have izzah in it. Meaning, as we were talking before, that you know the air that you breathe and so forth, it's a must that you have all the time. But however, you do not think about it much. Why? Because it's available all the time. But if the air, you know, it is, you get it from one source, okay, and you are not, it is not quite available, and you have to work to get it, okay, it is difficult. So when it is less of it, the less it is, the more precious it becomes. So it is something that you need, and it is not so abundant. And also, if you cannot control it yourself, if you have no ability to control it, then it becomes truly Aziz. And when we think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that we need in everything. And He is the only one that can provide our need for everything. And there is no way that we can control Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way, shape, or form. So when we think this way, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the absolute Aziz. Okay? But when you think about that, And now that could be a scary thought, because here is a source that you need everything from, and this source is the only source. You cannot turn around and go to any other source. There is no such a thing. But at the same time, you'll be there, and it's up to the source. It's not up to you. You cannot force this source to get you what you want, and you cannot go and control that source. So that could be very scary. But for a believer, it is very comfortable. Why? Because this source also is Rahim. This source also has mercy and has all the most beautiful attributes as well. So one loves to submit to Allah. One trusts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hold back anything from us. Okay? Just to hold it back. No. There is, you find Al-Aziz Al-Hakim also. Al-Aziz and then the most wise. So no, Allah will hold it back subhanahu wa ta'ala on us because of a wisdom, because it is still good for us, because it has rahmah in it, a component of rahmah and so forth. Okay? So when Allah's mercy reaches someone, okay, and Allah, a relationship with His servant is Al-Aziz, then it becomes a life that a submission, surrendering to the most beautiful attributes and names to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a very beautiful feeling once you realize the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is important. This is important, meaning, what is this? This meaning when we start to understand the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it is words. It is words that has meanings. And when we start to dissect these meanings and begin to understand it and see how it manifests around us, then we know when we hear the word Allah is with us. Okay, Allah waliyul ladina amanu, Allah is the wali of those who are believers. Now these words has meaning now. We know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us with His attributes. It is a better life once we start getting into understanding of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to us about two places, hellfire and paradise. And this is always in the Quran. When one is mentioned, the other one is mentioned. And this balance of hope and fear and hope, is always there. Okay? And if you talk about one and not the other, if you dwell about one and not the other, then one will become unbalanced. A human being that's not, a believer, a Muslim that is not balanced. Okay? You know, once you talk about the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hellfire, and that's what you concentrate on. Now, this can take you into the path of looking for the mercy of Allah, and you cannot find, or it's difficult to find it, because there is always a punishment, there is always a fear and so forth. And if you go to the other side, you only look at the hope and Jannah and so forth, that gives you a safety, a false sense of safety, as if there is no punishment and everything is forgiven and you do not have to work much and so forth and so on. No, this is a false sense of safety, and this is a false sense of losing hope. Okay? And if you talk about the reward and paradise only, okay, the ear and the heart likes to listen to it, okay, because it is a reward, it is something good and benefits and so forth. But then if you listen to this and this only, uh, then you become unbalanced if any kind of talk about difficulties and punishment and so forth, you shy away from it. Okay? And when the punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives those who are in life right now, and it happens around us, it's sort of like it is not acceptable. It becomes not quite acceptable because you're not used to, your heart and your mind and your soul is not, looking at the punishment and the deserving of punishment and so forth. So that can take you into everybody is fine. There is no, no deed that will take one, out of the fold of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hereafter. That everybody will be equal, in the eyes of Allah, no matter what they do and so forth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us both here. Now, the punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed or describes here in the Quran for the hellfire, it has different names to it. Okay? So there is adhab. Adhab is a punishment, but it could be described as alim, painful, azim, great, muhin, humiliating, okay, and so forth. So there is adhab that is equal to the kind of punishment, the kind of disobedient, a punishment that's equal to the disobedient that they have in this life. So what is the disobedient? What kind of a disobedient they have? It is a disobedient that has to do with arrogance in this ayat, in this surah. Okay? They argue about what they do not know. Okay? They say, well, if there is death, why don't you bring our forefathers back? If there is a resurrection, why don't you get our forefathers back? This doesn't make sense, and so forth. And here is their arrogance get them to argue about things that they make believe that they are sure about and they have no information about. Right? And we can find that around. The arrogance of a person that start describing things or start arguing with things that they do not know much about at all. Okay? As if they are expert in the matter. And challenge the one with all the knowledge. Okay? That's how much ignorance and arrogance it is. So now the punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described now is a punishment of those who are arrogant. Okay? So here is a humiliation will reach them. And taste this, that you are what? Al-Aziz, Al-Kareem, okay? You have Izzah and you have honor and generosity and all. Is this true? When you receive someone and you receive him in a way of Izzah, in a way of karam and so forth, and in a way of honor, because they deserve this. Okay? But when someone does not deserve this, when someone acts the opposite of being, having an izzah and karam and so forth, and the punishment reaches them, and then you call them as such, this is making a mockery of them, making fun of them. And also relating to what they felt like in this life, or acted like in this life. Okay? Now, see, if a person thinks that he is Aziz, what does that mean? Okay? That means he's in control of things. Okay? That means he can provide things, and he feels that he is the one in control, and he feels like no harm that will touch him. Okay? He is the one who can cause things to happen, but nothing will happen to him. And he does not think that anybody will force him into anything. It's only his decision, and he will make whatever decision that he wants. and no one will stop him, and so forth. Okay, this arrogance, when somebody, feel this izzah, a false sense of izzah here, that is arrogance. And no arrogance will enter Jannah. No degree of arrogance, atom weight, a mustard seed of weight of arrogance will enter Jannah. The izzah that we have in this life, yes, we do have izzah, but it is given to us by Allah. Right? It is given to us by Allah. What did Umar radiallahu anhu say? That we were humiliated, okay, and Allah gave us izzah through Islam. And if we seek izzah away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll be humiliated again. See, that is throwing all their arrogance out. Okay? Yes, there is izzah, but this is given to us by Allah. Okay? It is the most merciful, the most wise is given us this. Okay? And if we think in a split second that we can, the izzah, it comes from any other source, and especially if we think it is coming from us as if we deserve something like this and so forth, this is something that takes us away from the actual izzah. So the person now is called Al-Aziz when he's being punished. Okay? If you were truly Al-Aziz in an innate in you, quality in you, that is not given to you but innate in you, okay, so what happened to it now? Okay? Where is the honor? Where is what you claim to be? It is gone. So what is happening to them is the food that they are eating, the water that they are getting, it is the description that is very painful. That is the shajarat al-zaqum, the tree of zaqum. The word zaqama, it is when one is whatever it is that they're eating is stuck in their throat. That is the word that describes that feeling. And one of the beautiful ways, if the Quran, all the Quran is beautiful, but the eloquence of the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes what is unknown to us, right? Okay, if there is something that you have no idea what it is, you have no idea what it is, and it's unlike anything that you know, okay, and I want to describe it, I have to find something that has some qualities like it and tell you about it, right? Meaning refer it to something that you have some familiarity with, so you can begin to understand what I'm describing. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the case of shajarat al-zaqum, there is a tree in hellfire and it has a fruit. So we have no idea what it is at all. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about it with something that is also unknown. When you describe something unknown by something that is unknown, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that in the Quran. Okay? But is that which is unknown that Allah used to describe, is what is known about it is a feeling, not an actual object. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Shajarat al-Zaqum, the tree of Zaqum, the fruits of it is like the heads of shaitan. Right? So do you know what the heads of shaitan like? No. So how will the Shajarat al-Zaqum is described with something that you don't know? Because once you hear the word the heads of shaitan, there is an image that is different in the mind of each one. There is a feeling that you get. There is you feel disgusting, like that, right? But if it was described specific, something that we're all familiar with, it might not be too bad to some, and maybe bad to others, maybe very bad to others. It's not the same. But if you describe it as something, as the heads of shayateen, now each one of us will think of it as something that is disgusted or disgusting, but that which is disgusting to you is different than this one, is different this one, and different than that one. So now that becomes the eloquent. It is something that you think of it as something that is so, you don't want to have anything to do with this. So, what they are receiving now, and they have to eat, and that is what they eat. Something that they don't want to eat, but that is the only thing to eat. So it goes into their throat and tears their inside and intestines and their throat to pieces. But there is no death. And then they want to do something that is to water, to go after that, to do some kind of damage control here, okay, and to get the thirst out. So they will be provided with water, but the water will be boiling. And then it will come over them, it will be poured over them, okay, and then so it will burn it from the outside and from the inside. It is so painful description that is there. And then now the makr is made of them. Okay, you are Aziz Kareem now, aren't you? Go ahead, Al-Aziz Al-Kareem now, go ahead. Okay. Now, no one will reach that except with justice. No one will get there except when they are getting the message and and they will refuse the message. We can turn the air conditioner off now. I know there's some will be uncomfortable now. So that is all of the descriptions, okay, we have to connect it to justice. That is, all of this is a person will be getting what they deserve. And the chances will be given to a person multiple times until they will close the door upon themselves. Yeah. Remember earlier in the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about Fir'aun and the signs that they were getting, and they kept refusing. And Quraysh and the relationship with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and how they were warned, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made dua, and they got less of food and sustenance and so forth. And they came back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, please ask Allah to lift this off of us. Okay? Now, remember this, that when one is pushed so much and has a lack of abundance, and not just a lack of abundance, but a suffering and the lack of everything, and pressured so much, to the point that all the resources are gone and you are helpless, you have nothing and you cannot survive. Okay? Imagine the people of Fir'aun, the water become blood. Meaning any water that they would try to reach, to them will be blood. So there is no water. Imagine that there is no source of water. But the Israelites, they would have the water. But to them, with water, to the Pharaoh and his people, it is blood. Okay? So, and the frogs everywhere. Okay? The locusts, the life becomes so miserable, and the sources are there, but to you or to them was something that is different than what it is. So the life becomes impossible. So now they get to that point, and then they admit that this is happening by Allah. So they go to the messenger of Allah and say, please ask your Lord to lift this off of us. That is Islam by force. You understand? They're submitting to that fact by force. They're submitting that everything is in the hand of Allah. And the only one who can change this is Allah. And you have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to change this. So they become Muslims now by force. They go to the messenger, they say, we believe in you now. How? Because we're asking you to ask your Lord now to lift it. And then he goes and asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifts it. The blood becomes water now. All the frogs are gone, and so forth and so on. Now, they go back, and they go back to their arrogance. Now, what is that? What is that? What kind of a disease that is? And not one time. All these signs came not at all together. 9 different ones, and then every time they reach that level of impossible life, they go back to Musa alayhi salam. It is lifted, and then they go back, and then Allah sent another one, and then they go back to Musa alayhi salam, and keep go back and forth like that. So now, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We will not punish unless we send a messenger. Here it is. Here it is. Okay? So when someone as such is his end into such an experience in hellfire and so forth, now that is a continuation now of the person, here is, the arrogance will take him to such a place. Now, we'll make it a little bit long because we don't want to talk about hellfire without talking about paradise before we leave in Fajr. Okay. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes those in paradise. What is the first description? Okay, the description that Allah gives it within this ayah. They are in a state of safety. Maqamin amin. That's a maqam that is safe. Okay. Now when you think about just that one word, what is safety? Okay. Safety is, could make many definitions, but basically in a nutshell, safety is knowing what to expect from your environment. Right? Safety is knowing what to expect from your environment. Okay, meaning that I'm sitting on a chair, very comfortable. When I was planning to sit on it, did I think, is this chair going to hold me? I am going to relax in a position that is very dangerous, right? Can you imagine this position that I'm in, but nothing under me? What would happen to me? Fall in the ground. My body physically cannot hold me up in this position. Something has to be under me to hold me. Now I'm trying to sit and letting myself go in a position that I know that it is dangerous. I cannot control myself, but I'm comfortable that that chair will hold me and keep me safe. So, knowing what to expect from this chair that is made from this wood and made from this leather and soft and comfortable and all of that, I did not even think about it. This chair I'm very familiar with. I sit on it every day in and out. So I come in and sit there and do not think about it. That is safety. And safety in this life is to know what to expect even from harm. That is a kind of safety. Right? Meaning that you know that you do not mix this with this because harm will come from it. Some harm will come, so you stay away from it. So knowing the property of things and your familiarity with it and how it responds to your action toward it and so forth, that gives you safety. Okay? For example, you want to stand up and fix the light. So you get something to stand on. So what do? You get a piece of wood between two chairs, if you will, or something, if you want to walk on it to move in this way and that way. You look at it, and if it is too thin, you say, no, I'm not going to take this. Because this is not going to carry my weight. So you know what to expect from this wood. So you need a certain thickness, and you even take it and you press on it and you feel it and you examine it and say, yeah, this is good. Okay? That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We could never stop thinking about this bounty that Allah has given us in this life. That knowing the property of things around us and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to know this, to bring safety to ourselves. Okay, or to live within this safety. The safety of having clothes that I know I'm going to put this jacket and over it another coat before I go in the snow. The safety, I know that this is going to keep me warm, and on and on, and it has no end if you got to reflect on this. Okay? But now in Jannah, it is maqam that is truly ameen, that is very safe. Meaning, it is there is you do not deal with anything in a way of being cautious. Right? In safety in this life, you have to be cautious with things so you can get to be safe. In Jannah, that doesn't exist. Why? Because there is no harm. There absolutely no harm. So therefore, it is a constant safety. Now, that's how beautiful the language is, and getting to know what Jannah is without experiencing Jannah. Right? Let me give you a kind of, I don't want to say silly, but kind of something that's interesting. If you open the window and you look at something outside, you look at your car outside and you want something from it, what do? The safety mechanism that you have now tells you that you need to go down the stairs and go to your car and get whatever it is. Because that is the safe way from a high place to a low place. Okay? So you take the means within safety. But in Jannah, you want to go from one place to another. There is no, every way is safe because there is no harm that's existing. So you just come out of the window to your car. You do not think about this distance and your weight and the gravity and all of this as something that could be harmful. Now, can you imagine that a life that you're living with the state of mind that harm does not exist? Okay? Now, we have computer programmers here, Brother Ahmed. Now, I'm sure his mind is working so hard now. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this is, but see, Superman is the one who has a false sense of this. Mankind puts this on the paper and say, a man is this, and that. Okay. And subhanallah, those who act like this, there's subhanallah. Fools, yes. Yeah, okay. So here is the existence of maqam al-amin. Okay. Now, also the jannat, okay, the gardens that we are familiar what a garden is. But the garden that we have in this life, it has a bother, something that would bother you in it, right? But the gardens of the hereafter, of Jannah, there is no bother in it. Okay, and the food that you eat, okay, that is. Can you imagine no bother? That means the chewing that you chew, it is some kind of a work that you have to do. Okay, the swallowing that you have to swallow, it's a work that you have to do. That you get filled, and then you stop because you cannot eat anymore. These kind of bothers, even if it's so little and so forth, doesn't exist. You are sitting now. You are made of bones and muscles and so forth. Okay? And when you are sitting now, you're exerting an effort to stay upright with the muscles of your back and your torso and so forth, and sometimes you lean with your hand back a little bit because your muscle is aching, or you want to relax a little bit and so forth. Why? That is a kind of bother. Okay? That will not exist. And so forth. Okay? The description of the spouses in Jannah, okay, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them, and the eye and the looks, okay, or the look that the wife will give to her husband, the warm and loving look, with the most beautiful eyes that has the white is very white and the dark is very dark, and so forth. So it is the pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the senses, pleasing to the hearing, pleasing is in peace, that there is no harm exists ever, and the expectation is always good. How could that be possible in this life? It's impossible. Okay? But the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life is the only relationship that does not have a downside to it. Okay? And the only pleasure that does not have a disappointment in it at the end. Right? As we always say, there is a peak and then a valley, or comes down. Whatever pleasure in this life. But that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it keep going up and keep going up. Okay? That's why we were talking yesterday about Ramadan, and how the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reaching high levels in Ramadan. And then after Ramadan, there is no more qiyam, there is no more reading Quran, there is no more gathering together every day for a long time. There is many things that brought us up by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to this point. Now you're going to let go of it, so what's expectation? You're going to come down. Okay? But you're going to come down because of your lack of work, not because of it is impossible. You understand that? In food, it will come down because of it's impossible to keep going up. You like kunafa so much, you're going to eat so much kunafa, and then that's it. Okay? Okay. So it's impossible to continue the pleasure of kunafa. Okay? So you have to stop. Okay? But the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can it go down? Yes. Why? Because you stopped. Not because of you have to stop. Okay? So if you don't stop, it keeps going up. So that's why Iman is what? Goes up and down. It goes up by obedience and goes down by the lack of obedience, the lack of relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so forth. So now in Jannah, there is no a peak that would come down in anything, period. How is that possible? Yes, it is possible. How, we don't know, because that doesn't exist in this life. But we can understand the concept. We can understand that would be a very pleasurable concept. So, the physical existence in Jannah, the relationship in Jannah, and the best of relationship is seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, we talk about this point that the most pleasure in Jannah, after all the dwellers of Jannah receive everything, meaning when they are in the market of Jannah, as Rasulullah described it as the suq of Jannah, that all you will get a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angels will come to you to your Jannah, giving you a message, you open it, and it will be written, in it that min al-hayy alladhi la yamut ila al-hayy alladhi la yamut. From the one who is living, never dies, to the one who is living and never dies, which you are now in Jannah. Okay, I would like to see you. Would you like to come and see me? Now everybody will be going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that long hadith, but the point is they will be given everything this in the market of Jannah. And then at the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them, do you need anything else? Do you want anything else? And the answer would be, how could that be possible? That would be something else. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, yes, there is something else. That I will be pleased with you, I'll never be angry with you. Now, that is what the ultimate now. After everything that they want and they can imagine to receive, that is more than all of that. But it's not physical. It is a feeling that you recognize, a fact that you recognize that gives you a pleasure. Right? It's a fact that you recognize that gives you a pleasure. That Allah is pleased with you, will never be angry with you. Just like we started by saying Allah al-Aziz al-Rahim, that recognizing certain qualities about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you that pleasure. Beyond the physical pleasure that you get that Allah has given you in this life. Similarly, with some difference, with a big difference. But you have to work into this realization in this life. That you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Aziz and He is Rahim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so dear to you because everything you get from Allah, and Allah loves you so much. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you cannot contain Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to keep giving you. So you surrender to Allah because you're going to get into the mercy of Allah this way. And now you did not move at all. You're just sitting there reflecting about this, and you are feeling the feel of safety, the feel of love, the feel of rahmah, and so forth. Okay? Now, in Jannah, similarly, now there is no harm, nothing, and so forth, and you get all kind of pleasure. But the ultimate pleasure also is that a recognition of a fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, radiyallahu anhum wa radu anhu. That is the pleasure. That Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Him. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين الحمد لله رب العالمين. Please, if you would like to make any comments, inshallah. No comments? Yes. If we are recording, maybe we need to give a microphone. Yeah. So yeah.
With the description of the amn that you provided, the amn that the dwellers of the Jannah will get is that will be a life, a very good life, yes, that does not have any death.
Yes.
You know.
There is in this life there is always an end to the pleasure. Okay? An end to the pleasure that could be temporary, or an end of the pleasure permanently that we can perceive, right? The temporary one is the one that's limited by our senses, meaning as the food, after a while you cannot eat more kunafa than what you eat, or whatever it is. And so forth, whatever the pleasure is, it has a limit, physical limit that you cannot go beyond it. So you know you are feeling a pleasure, but you also expect it that's going to end. And also the fear of that you're going to die, meaning that life is going to have an end, a permanent one, that you're not going to come back to this life anymore. Okay? But yeah, mashallah, so now you are in Jannah, neither one exists.
Right.
Neither one exists, yes. So you are in the safety of the existence of no harm whatsoever, and the safety that this life, it has no end at as well.
Right. Any feeling of distress, sadness, whatever feelings that we experience here in this world would not be existing in the hereafter. No.
لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. That is a state of pleasure. No fear for the future and nor regret in the past.
Like the description that the Prophet Muhammad gave, لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر.
No, that is a special place in Jannah.
No.
Yes.
Coming to think of it, all of these things, to some extent, are possible here too. We talk about, as you said, safety. A believer feels safe. Eternal pleasure. A believer, as if he has nafs mutmainna, it's eternal pleasure. The relationship with Allah, when we say that, Allah will invite us, invite the believers, come to meet me, I'm pleased with you. You have that too here. So, in other words, so what we need really is, bottom line, if you have a good connection with Allah, and you work for it, you work hard, you can reach a state which becomes permanent, of safety, of pleasing, Allah being pleased with you. You'll know it because you'll feel the extreme love for Allah. And whatever harm comes, it's no harm because you wouldn't feel it. So the permanent pleasure, probably the Jannah starts here.
Brother Amir is describing the Jannah as a prerequisite to the other Jannah.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
yes, mashallah.
So thinking about it, I'm just trying to sum up information. It was really overwhelming what we discussed today. I mean, for me at least. To think about all of the things all at once. You can't really think about questions. You have to absorb the material first. So summing up, if we are able to reach that level, we can, which is possible, then the hereafter starts here. And it can be permanent, and you cannot fear, you don't need to have the fear that your iman will come down or go up, or come down or go up. Because if you reach that permanent state, and that's it. There's no going back. Shaitan would not bother you. We know that too.
The protection from
Yes, Shaitan would say, this is it, I'm done with you guys. I'll go figure out what to do with the rest. So alhamdulillah. So bottom line is, if we work hard, which is very, very possible, we can achieve that state. And truly, then the only obstacle between us and Jannah would be this limited death that we will face after, in this dunya we'll die and then we'll go to our permanent.
It's work that needs to be done. Yes. Yes.
How does one? Well, this is a big discussion, but coming out of Ramadan.
Yes.
How do we go up from here? I'm not saying maintain, I'm saying how do we go up from here? That's my question now.
Well, the ultimate life that is pleasing and rewarding is when the everything that we do would be in the path of Allah. Okay? Meaning with the right intention, everything will be rewarded. Okay? If we continue in our lives with the mechanism that we got in Ramadan, with the Quran and the Qiyam and the relationship and appreciating what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us throughout Ramadan and holding on to it, now we are an instrument that is more refined than before Ramadan. Okay? then this instrument can, inshallah, by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be sensitive to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with in everything that we do. So everything that we do is going to be refined and tuned to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. Okay? So now with the right intention, okay, all the act of living will be an act of worship. Yeah.
Jazakallah.
Described is correct. With one exception, that everything has an end here in Islam. It's never the permanent.
Right.
Everything has an end. There is a hikmah with it for us to know that everything has an end. Because once you know that everything has an end here, you can strive for utmost, reward that we can get here in Islam, so that we can.
The microphone.
We can invest. We can invest for our hereafter. It's very, very important to realize that. Yeah. But when harm, say for example, struck us, for example, if we get some harm here in this world, we have to have the attitude that it comes from Allah, and we have to exercise sabr, and by doing sabr, we are going to reward for it, from Allah. If you get something good, coming toward us, then we have to make shukr to Allah. If we have that kind of attitude, then alhamdulillah, life will be very, very much easier. Very easy. Very easy. Yes. Yes. You have thought about the say the one of if you have a good, for example, thinking about Allah, then everything will be fine. Allah. If you know that everything comes from Allah, and you thought of Allah, good about Allah, then things will be easier. Allah.
جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.